Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. The basic idea is simple. People cannot react properly to something they cannot see coming. When a person knows what another person is trying to accomplish, they can begin preparing for it. They can question the person, block their progress, change their own behavior, or simply refuse to cooperate. But when the real intention remains hidden, the other person has much less information to work with. That is where concealment begins. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. This means that the visible action and the real purpose behind that action do not necessarily have to look the same. Someone might see what is happening, but still not understand why it is happening. For example, imagine someone repeatedly asking questions about a particular subject. The questions themselves may seem ordinary. The other person hears them and thinks they understand the conversation, but they may not realize that those questions are connected to something else entirely. The information being collected is visible. The reason for collecting it is hidden. That difference is the important part. The person watching can see the pieces, but they cannot see the complete picture. And when the complete picture is missing, different explanations become possible. They might assume the action is connected to one thing when it is actually connected to another. That leads to the next idea. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. A defense requires some understanding of what is happening. If someone knows what you want, they can protect themselves against it. If they know where you are going, they can position themselves accordingly. If they know what result you are trying to produce, they can interfere with that result. But uncertainty creates a different situation. Instead of responding to the real objective, they are responding to whatever explanation they currently believe. Their attention is directed toward the information available to them. And if that information is incomplete, their response is also based on incomplete information. This creates what the passage calls being kept in the dark. It does not necessarily mean that the person sees nothing. They may actually see quite a lot. They simply do not understand what all of those things are connected to. Then the passage says, guide them far enough down the wrong path. The wrong path is the explanation they have formed about what is happening. They believe one thing is taking place, so they begin interpreting everything through that belief. A small action can then appear to support their assumption. Another action can appear to confirm it. Before long, they have created a complete explanation in their own mind. But the explanation is built around the wrong destination. The person is not necessarily being physically moved anywhere. Their understanding is being moved. Their attention is being directed toward one interpretation, while the actual intention remains somewhere else. Then comes the phrase, envelop them in enough smoke. Smoke is used here as a metaphor for confusion. When there is too much information, too many possibilities, or too many conflicting signals, it becomes difficult to identify what is real and what matters. Imagine looking through a room filled with smoke. The objects are still there, but their outlines become unclear. You can see something without being able to identify it accurately. The same thing can happen with information. When someone receives several different signals, they may struggle to determine which signal represents the actual intention. And while they are trying to make sense of the confusion, the real objective remains hidden. That leads to the final part. By the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. The important idea here is timing. Concealment works through a difference between when something is happening and when its meaning becomes clear. An action can happen first. The person can interpret it incorrectly. More actions can follow. And only later does the connection become obvious. At that point, the person may finally understand what the earlier actions were really connected to. The revelation comes after the important events have already taken place. So the entire first section can be reduced to one simple sequence. Hide the real purpose, create another explanation. Keep attention focused on that explanation. Allow the real objective to remain unnoticed. Allow the real objective to remain unnoticed. Use decoyed objects of desire and red herrings. The second section takes the idea further. It introduces decoys and red herrings. A decoy is something that attracts attention toward itself while something else remains less noticeable. A red herring works in a similar way. It introduces a clue, possibility, or direction that appears important but leads attention away from the real subject. The passage says, if at any point in the deception you practice people have the slightest suspicion as to your intentions, all is lost. The important word here is suspicion. Once someone becomes suspicious, they stop accepting things at face value. A normal action may suddenly look meaningful. An innocent statement may receive extra attention. A coincidence may start looking connected. The person begins searching for the hidden explanation. Instead of simply watching what is happening, they begin asking, what is really going on here? That question changes everything, because now they are no longer following the visible story. They are looking behind it. So the passage describes another mechanism for maintaining uncertainty. Throw them off the scent by dragging red herrings across the path. Think about the word scent. It represents a trail that leads toward something. If someone is following that trail, they believe they are getting closer to the truth. A red herring introduces another trail. Now there are multiple possible directions. The person has to decide which one is genuine. And if several possibilities appear believable, identifying the real one becomes much harder. The passage then mentions false sincerity. Sincerity normally signals honesty or genuine feeling, but when sincerity is false, the appearance of honesty becomes part of the surface story. The person watching sees what looks like genuine emotion or genuine intention. Because it appears authentic, they may not immediately question what lies underneath it. Then comes send ambiguous signals. Ambiguous means something can be understood in more than one way. One statement can have several possible meanings. One action can support different interpretations. Instead of producing a clear answer, the signal creates uncertainty. The person receiving it has to interpret it for themselves, and different people can reach completely different conclusions from the same signal. Finally, the passage says, set up misleading objects of desire. An object of desire is simply something a person wants. It could be money, attention, recognition, a relationship, status, an opportunity, information, or almost anything else that someone finds attractive. The important part is that the desired object becomes a point of focus. When someone sees something they strongly want, their attention naturally moves toward it. That makes the object useful as a distraction. Within the larger deception described in the passage, they focus on what appears to be the prize while the actual objective remains somewhere else. The final sentence brings everything together. Unable to distinguish the genuine from the false, they cannot pick out your real goal. That is the central mechanism. The problem is no longer simply that information is missing. The problem is that real information and misleading information are mixed together. Some signals are genuine, others are false. Some actions matter, others are distractions. Some possibilities are real, others exist only to attract attention. And because the person cannot confidently separate one from the other, they cannot confidently identify the true objective. So the entire passage describes a chain. Hide the intention, create uncertainty, direct attention toward another explanation, introduce alternative possibilities, mix genuine signals with misleading ones, keep the real objective difficult to distinguish from everything surrounding it. And that is what concealing your intentions means in the simplest possible terms. The visible situation tells one story, while the actual purpose remains hidden underneath it. The person watching sees the movement. They see the clues. They see the actions. They see the apparent goal, but they do not see how all of those pieces connect. And as long as they cannot connect the pieces correctly, the real intention remains concealed.